Okay, so the internet has been absolutely unhinged for the past few days, and honestly, I am here for every single second of it. Drake's baby mama, Sophie Brussaux, just got married. Not to Drake, to a 36-year-old. Wait, sorry, she is 36 years old, and she married a 26-year-old Turkish Muay Thai fighter named Efe Kaliskan. The wedding happened in Canada on Father's Day weekend. Yes, you heard that right, Father's Day, with close family and friends in North York, Toronto. Sophie is the mother of Drake's only son, Adonis, who was born back in October 2017. And the moment this news hit the internet, pure chaos. So let's get straight into what people were actually saying, because this comment section, it did not disappoint. The comment with probably the most love on the entire post was someone who simply said they were happy for her, that they never understood the hate she received or why Drake acted like she wasn't enough. Happy she found love. And honestly, that one comment alone opened up a whole conversation, because people had opinions about that. One person replied saying she's very beautiful and unproblematic, and that people only talked bad about her because of her previous profession and her look, and that they personally think she's very pretty. Sweet, right? But then, and here's where it gets interesting, another person fired right back and said, look, it was never really hate, but you can't go coming for other people when the situation you came from was what it was. That's the cleaned up version. They were a lot more direct about it. So right away, the comment section split into two very different camps. Now, the comment that honestly made the most noise, the one that got thousands and thousands of interactions, was someone who asked why nobody is calling her Drake's baby mama the way they do for black women. And that one, that cracked the whole thing open, because people flew to DED in. Someone else asked the exact same thing differently. They said, why is she being called his BM, meaning baby mama, like it's nasty? But then also, why isn't she getting the same label that others get? Both sides of that argument were going at the same time, in the same comment section, almost talking past each other. Which is kind of wild when you think about it. Someone came through and pointed out the obvious, that if they hadn't mentioned Drake in the headline, nobody would even know who she was. Blunt, short, but actually kind of true, and a lot of people agreed with that. Then one girl jumped in and said, Siri, play Level Up by Ciara. And if you don't know that reference, Ciara is the artist who famously moved on from a messy situation and married NFL star Russell Wilson, and that song became kind of an anthem for women who upgraded their lives after a rough chapter. So people were drawing that parallel instantly. And someone else actually asked directly, is this like a Ciara and Russell Wilson situation? And that comment alone got nearly 200 likes because the comparison just made sense to people. Someone else came through and said her getting married has absolutely nothing to do with Drake, and that people need to stop being so obsessed. People are allowed to move on. It doesn't matter who you had a child with. And that comment had a decent number of people agreeing. But then, here's where it gets a little petty. Someone replied that meanwhile, Drake is out here buying Kendrick Lamar's childhood home for $4 million more than it's worth. And they said, family values. Family values, meaning Drake is out here doing that, and Sophie is out here getting married and living her life. The contrast was not lost on people. Now, there was a comment that genuinely made people laugh, and it said, Drake about to make another album. Because Drake has a history of channeling personal situations into music, and people felt like this news was just going to add more material. Someone else said, he's still out there being a sponsor, meaning he's funding other people's lifestyles, while his baby mama just got a whole husband. That one had a lot of energy behind it. Someone pointed out the age gap, 10 years apart, they said. Something is off. And look, she's 36, he's 26, so that's a 10-year difference, and the person who wrote that clearly felt some kind of way about it. But another person came through and said she married a fighter and that's cute. They can't hate. But when the child gets older and finds out about his mom's history, that's a different kind of weight to carry. Heavy comment, very heavy. One verified account actually jumped in and said she's hurt, and that's why she did this, implying the whole thing was some kind of reaction to Drake. But then someone else immediately pushed back and said her and Drake were never together, so there's nothing to be hurt about. Sometimes, they said, you're just meant to have the baby. And honestly, that comment had nearly 1,000 likes, so clearly it resonated. Someone said she deserves it. So unproblematic. Unproblematic. That word kept coming up again and again in these comments. Unproblematic. because a huge part of why people were rooting for her is the fact that she never went online bashing Drake, never tried to get attention through drama, never played the victim publicly. One person said, "Shout out to her, she's so out of the way, I almost forgot what she looked like. She doesn't get on the internet bashing Drake, trying to get attention. Nothing, just minding her business and taking care of their son. I love this for her." And that comment, that one felt genuine, like people really respected the silence. But then, a man came through and said, "Marrying someone like her in 2026, you've definitely got to be desperate." And that comment actually got quite a few likes too, which tells you there are people who still hold her past against her. And that tension between who she was professionally before and who she is now as a mother, that was running underneath almost every single comment. Someone noticed that the story published a picture of Drake on the front page, even though it has nothing to do with him, with Sophie in a tiny circle and no picture of the new husband. And they said, "The actual subject in a tiny circle and no pic of the new husband." They had 3 laughing emojis after it and an exasperated face, and they were right. The whole framing of the story centered Drake in a moment that was literally about Sophie and her new husband. Here's where it gets really wild. Someone said she got married before Rihanna and Kendrick's fiancé of 12 years. 12 years. Rihanna and A$AP Rocky have been together publicly, and Kendrick Lamar and his partner have been together over a decade, and Sophie, who most people forgot about, just walked down the aisle first. That comment got almost 200 likes because the irony was just too good. One person said they liked that she stayed down, never bashed Drake, and that good things come to those who wait. And another person said it differently. They said someone who sees this as a spiritual thing, saying that God puts your enemies to shame. He's merciful and forgiving. Congratulations to her. So even faith found its way into this comment section. Someone else pointed out, and look, this one stuck with me. They said Drake probably treats this man like family. Like family, because that's kind of what happens in co-parenting situations where a new partner enters the picture. The man who married the mother of your child is now in your child's life. So whether Drake likes it or not, Ife is going to be around Adonis. And that brings us to the comment that made people go quiet for a second. Someone said, "Having 2 rich daddies is always the goal. Go Adonis." And look, they said it as a joke, but underneath that joke is actually a real conversation about what this means for that little boy. He now has his biological father, who is one of the most famous musicians in the world, and a stepfather who is a professional fighter. That is a very specific childhood, and whether that's a blessing or complicated, only time will tell. Now here is the plot twist that almost nobody saw coming. Because while everyone was debating Drake, debating Sophie, debating the age gap and the timing and the Father's Day wedding, someone quietly pointed out that Sophie Brussaux is not just known as Drake's baby mama. Before any of this, she had her own professional life, and then she became an artist, a painter. She actually sells paintings and has been building her own identity completely separate from the Drake narrative for years. And most people in that comment section, most people online period, had completely forgotten that. They were so locked into who she was in relation to Drake that they missed who she had become on her own. And that, right there, is the thing that nobody was really talking about. Because what this whole moment actually shows us, underneath all the jokes and the Drake references and the Ciara comparisons, is something much more real. It shows us that the internet has a very long memory for women, especially women connected to famous men, especially women who came from unconventional backgrounds. And it shows us that when a woman moves quietly, minds her business, raises her child, and then wins, people don't quite know what to do with that. They want to celebrate her, but they still want to define her by the man she had a child with. They want to root for her, but they can't stop putting his name first. Sophie Brussaux got married. Her name was in the headline, but Drake's name was the picture on the front page. And that tells you everything you need to know about how we still talk about women in 2026. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think the internet will ever let her step fully out of Drake's shadow, or is that just the price of having a famous baby daddy? I genuinely want to know what you think. And if you're new here, subscribe for more daily viral news because we break it all down every single day, just like this.